Are we actually able to have telepathic skills? That's the question that people try to answer for centuries.
What goes on behind your eyeballs?
Inside our brains, things like telepathy shouldn't really exist.
However,
what we know is that people have different capabilities.
there is some real legit recent evidence that proves that telepathy does really exist.
As a scientist, what has made you believe that this is not just a whoopee-whoopee type thing, but this is actual science?
The mother said that he was telepathic with her, and I did experiments, and he was able to get them correct.
Multiply two numbers and see if he gets it.
Okay, what is it?
9, 0, 0.
He didn't miss a single item.
Any person from the conservative scientific world would disagree, because according to them, telepathy is not possible.
Telepathy seems like a superpower in the Spider-Man movie. It doesn't feel real. But these parents, one after the other, were saying, this is real, this is happening.
Stay with me and I'll prove you that telepathy does really exist, and I'll explain you exactly why these latest discoveries are not on the front news.
Hey, what's up, everyone? This is Kai Dickens, and you're listening to the Telepathy Tapes podcast.
There's this recent podcast that's turning skeptics into believers, and is happening right now.
If you haven't heard of the Telepathy Tapes...
The Telepathy Tapes.
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 Telepathy Tapes?
Oh, yeah.
Dude, it's blowing my absolute mind.
The revolution is happening right now.
I didn't think telepathy could be real. That seems impossible. It just seems impossible.
This is Kai Dickens, a creator of this podcast, which in only a couple of months became one of the most streamed podcasts on Spotify, with only 10 episodes. In the podcast, Kai Dickens joins Diana Hennessy Powell, a doctor who taught neuropsychiatry at Harvard Medical School.
As much as someone can be, she's a legitimate academic. She started by studying savant skills.
For example, someone who can play the piano flawlessly without ever taking a lesson, or a person who, after a brain injury, suddenly understands complex calculus.
So Dr. Diane Powell is studying savant skills in autistic children, and somewhere along the way, enough parents had said, look, I'm actually not sure if they are a savant. I think they might just be reading my mind.
The Telepathy Tapes, which later will become a documentary film, is following Kai Dickens and Dr. Powell doing various experiments.
There you go. All right, so Dr. Powell, show Ileana on both cameras, please.
The experiments were simple. The mother is shown a number, and the child who has no way of seeing it has to guess what number she's looking at. As these nonverbal autistic kids cannot speak, they have to point out the numbers on these number boards or iPads.
And if the time that they are correct is statistically significant.
Oh, it's like over 95%.
Over 95% of the time?
Yes.
I'm just going to... And then...
All right, go ahead. Have you seen it?
What's the picture about?
C R O E crocodile.
Every single time they would get it right.
There was absolutely no way John Paul could have seen anything that was being written.
Yeah, and then how did you assess John Paul's accuracy and his abilities?
He didn't miss a single item. When you witness that, it's a little mind-boggling.
What I really find interesting is that the child would not only be able to read his mother's thoughts, but also to almost see through her eyes.
Sometimes the mom wouldn't even know what the image was. So at one point she thought it was food fight, it was ketchup and mustard, and he wrote paint. So at that point it's like she's not obviously sending a thought, right? He seems to be tapping in the second the image is in her own mind.
Now, before you judge and don't believe in all of this, please go watch the first episode of Telepathy Tapes. Even if you're not a believer, it's still a really good production. And I think this show will help you to also develop a little bit more empathy towards these families and the kids with autism. I realized I had zero idea what they're going through, and I feel like society really needs to know about this. But let's go back to the crazy part. According to these nonverbal autistic kids, not only they can read their parents' minds, but they usually have real telepathic conversations with other similar kids. Okay, this is going wild. It turns out that they can telepathically communicate with each other through the distance.
Libby and I follow John Paul upstairs to his bedroom, where he lies on the bed with pillows stacked on his head.
The way it works is they close themselves alone in a room. They block themselves with a bunch of pillows to reduce all of the sounds from their house. And this way they communicate with their friends telepathically.
It's just him having some social time with his friends. People don't understand that they can do this. They don't even have to be in the same room, the same zip code.
Have you asked him how it works?
John Paul explained it almost like how the root system works. Trees communicate with each other through their roots, that this is a whole different way that they do that. It's a different system.
It's not these kids sitting together or being physically in a location. It's communicating, using their minds in some way to exchange ideas and information.
And regardless of how crazy it sounds, it really seems real.
And when you see it, and when you talk to enough parents who are saying, all you need to do is go see it. It's not like does it show up or like will it appear? It's like for the parents and teachers who report this is happening, if you go work with a speller, you just see it.
I went through the comments section under the Telepathy Tapes podcast or other videos talking about it, and it seems like these families with nonverbal autistic kids are finally being heard. And they finally understand that they are not alone, just going crazy that their kid can read their minds. There are kids like this all over the world.
These kids that had been written off by medical science and described as intellectually retarded were actually telling books to each other, exchanging ideas.
But if this is real and these kids are actually telepathic, why it's not on the front news? Why isn't every scientist now rushing to study this? Well, it's got something to do with how the world of science works.
The only thing that exists is atoms in the void, and that everything, including the human mind, is reducible to atoms in the void.
Western science relies on something called materialism. It's a belief that everything in the universe, including our thoughts, emotions, and consciousness, comes from physical matter like atoms, brains, chemicals.
Materialism is a philosophical idea that the material world is all that is. In other words, the most fundamental reality is just matter colliding with matter, maybe obeying physical laws, and everything else has to be explained in terms of matter.
Basically, if you can't measure it, weight it, or see it, it doesn't exist. There are 10 core ideas that pretty much define how Western science sees the world. And if you really break them down, they sound less like facts and more like a religion. They say everything is mechanical, that you're basically a biological robot, that your mind is just neurons firing in your head, and consciousness is just a side effect of chemicals sloshing around your brain.
This is a very widespread belief in our society. It's the kind of belief system of people who say, I don't believe in God, I believe in science.
They say nature has no purpose. The memories are nothing but data stored in your brain, wiped out the moment you die. And if you've ever experienced something unexplainable, like telepathy, for example, you're hallucinating.
What's frustrating is that many people identify this philosophical idea of materialism with the practice of natural science itself. But these just aren't the same thing. Science comes from a word that means wisdom or knowledge. And so natural science is just a way of gaining a certain kind of knowledge about the natural world. It doesn't entail that the natural world or the physical world is all that exists.
And materialism has dictated our thinking for centuries.
So if you suddenly have proof that maybe the information can be transmitted in ways we don't understand, well, that doesn't just challenge a single idea. It challenges the whole foundation of the modern neuroscience.
And I think as we question these dogmas that have held back science so long, science will undergo a reflowering, a renaissance.
In 2013, Rupert Sheldrake was invited to do a presentation on TED Talks.
I've spent my whole life as a research scientist, my whole career. But I think by moving beyond these dogmas, it can be regenerated.
Interestingly, his speech was banned and removed from the TED Talks official website and their YouTube channel. You see, in his presentation, the whole scientific view was challenged, and someone really didn't like that.
2/3 to 3/4 of the public in surveys have been shown to already believe in these things. So it's really mainstream academic institutions that are the gatekeepers here.
And since there is such a stigma in the scientific world around these psychic phenomena, researchers just don't get funded and they just cannot do these experiments. Dr. Powell has been doing a research on these nonverbal autistic kids for decades, but mostly all of the funding came from her own pocket.
I'd say the major challenge was lack of funding. So it requires traveling to wherever they are and staying in a hotel. And then because seeing is believing, I knew that I would have to have, visual recording of what was going on, and I would have to really cover the room comprehensively. I mean, it's not okay to just come back with video from one angle.
And usually the scientists who go down that alternative route, they're being labeled as a pseudo-scientist, and their reputation is usually gone, regardless of how much proof there's out there. I feel like humans usually are afraid to change their views, to change their opinion. We like to have different beliefs, but the problem with beliefs is they don't stay as beliefs for too long. They become facts in our minds. And that's a problem because it's really difficult to change facts, Like the fact that telepathy doesn't exist. It's not a fact, it's just a belief. But if we are open to challenge our beliefs, to ask questions, we might discover some really crazy stuff about this world.
And that's what I would say to anyone listening who's just like, I don't know what to believe, I don't know what to make of this. Approach everything with open-minded skepticism. And being an open-hearted skeptic doesn't mean you don't ask questions. It doesn't mean you don't explore the truth, but you need to be open that the truth might be very different than what you think it is.
Please subscribe to my channel if you want to learn more about this and hear some other crazy stories. I've got loads of the good stuff, actually. I got the good stuff, like very positive stories. I want to share my love with the world, and I'm excited to start my YouTube journey. So if you made it this far into the video, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. So stick around, enjoy life, be grateful for what you have, and always remember, life is so much more beautiful than they tell you on the news.